Right, I'm John. Obviously, I'm not French, but Homa Games is based in Paris. Here is the team. We have 30 people in Paris. 2 years ago today, there was 3 of us. I've seen Olivier in here somewhere, the co-founder, so bug him afterwards. And it's just an incredible journey. 3 people 2 years ago. We spent a lot of time studying the market. The conversation I just started, we're like, right, what is the next wave of hyper-casual, super-casual, hybrid-casual, hyper-casual plus, whatever you want to label it, going to look like? And we made some bets a couple of years ago. Fast forward to now, have a team of 30 people. We have 13 open roles. We've got some very exciting news coming out in the next couple of months that's really going to fuel our growth. And we've had, for me, we've had some numbers in the last session, but for me, what I would call our first big hit, i.e. a game with over 50 million downloads. So here's a couple of our games from the early years. And really what we were trying to do, should play or not. There we go. So this is Tiny Cars, and really what we were doing earlier on, we were just trying to learn, right? We were trying to learn about the monetization stack. We're trying to learn from a UA perspective all the cultural differences. And I guess the key thing we learned here is you'll talk to some publishers, and it's like, look, if you haven't got 47% day one retention, we're too important, we don't want to talk to you. What we learned was with Tiny Cars is, well, hang on a minute. We saw this game, and actually it had a CPI of below 20 cents, but it had day one retention of 40%. And we thought, okay, well, there's something really interesting here if the CPI is that low. So we kind of challenged ourselves, even back then, in terms of just rejecting it because it only had 40% day one. And we worked really closely with the developer on a couple of sprints and did a few things. So we added in more levels, like 60, 70 levels. We started adding in rewarded video that made sense. And what I mean by made sense is within this mechanic, it gave you the option to upgrade your car. Now, we did a few other things, but very quickly, that 40% went to 50%, day 3 went to 26%, and this game hit number 3 overall on iOS US. So one of the things we learned early on is, right, let's not behave like perhaps other publishers and just say, right, this is our minimum day 1, because we're here to actually help build a much bigger market than hyper-casual is right now. And if we just simply say, unless you've got this day 1, we're not going to talk to you, a lot of the people in this audience won't be friends with us. Right, so here's some of our most recent hits. Tower Color, hope you've played that one. Sky Roller, hopefully you've heard of that one. That's been our biggest hit to date. So over in December, it was in the top 10 most downloaded games overall, the second biggest hyper-casual game in December with 90 million downloads. And Pancake Art, and I'm going to talk through a little bit of this when I go into the trends that we're seeing. We also, there's Sky Roller, there's Pancake Art. We also started creating idle games. Now, we didn't do that just because we had nothing better to do. We were really interested to really, again, the best way to do this is to learn, the same as developers. You build stuff, you learn. So we moved into idle because we really want to understand, well, hang on a minute, what is it about idle games that's driving such higher IAP? Because we did see this DAU issue in hyper-casual, sorry, DAU as in specific, like high DAUs but low monetization. So we wanted to try and crack idle. So first one came in Idle World, which was one of Olivier's brainchilds, which did really well. And the most recent one that's out is Idle Landmark Tycoon. So Idle Landmark is already at about 4 million. Idle World is 8 million plus installs, to give you an idea of size. But it's really important, right? We're a publisher. We're just one piece of our success to date. There's 2 other important pieces. So all of our tech partners that we use, you know, like IronSource, AppLovin, Tenjin, Mopub, Snap, but also our developers, right? This is a partnership. This is not about, oh, aren't Homa Games great? This is about how great our partnership works together. So where are we going next? Well, sadly, my presentation had to change because there was going to be some things that I wanted to talk to you about, but we're under embargo about. So where are we going next? Well, we definitely want to build on our success of Sky Roller. We're not done in terms of installs. We're pushing heavily into Asia. So Sky Roller is currently number 7 in China within sport. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the way we structure our business. So this is one of the Homa squads. So if any of you work with us, you will probably have your own squad or might recognize these people. And we're ready for the next chapter. But what I want to talk to you about is, well, really, what do we learn, what mistakes did we make, and what trends do we see? So obviously the first one, yeah, not that interesting. You might have seen it already this morning, but it's really the trend underneath this. So what we're seeing is a higher volume of hyper-casual games quarter on quarter. So that's really interesting. But there's something really interesting going on beneath that, that if you just read that, you'd be like, right, I'm going to start a hyper-casual studio tomorrow. I'm going to get really, really rich. But there are some positives. So as we can see, this is from the awesome team and sorry, Ivan, if you're in here, I've stolen some of your slides. This is basically when you look at like the DAU of hyper-casual versus other genres, specifically idle, we're seeing a huge spike in DAUs, and they continue to go up. But you know, here's the problem. So when we look at retention, so DAU is really interesting, but when we look at retention, we do have a slight problem here. So when we look at arcade gaming, the top performing arcade games find themselves for kind of day one, we're looking at about 42% versus casual 40%. But when we look at day 7, if you've got a top game, you're looking at about 15%. If you've got an average game, you're 8%. So if I'm a developer or a publisher, I'd be looking at that and be like, right, I've got, you know, DAU is great, but I have a big LTV problem. How much money is my game actually making? So this is a really important point to understand. Is you know, we stand here and you hear a lot of PR about downloads, but what would you rather have? Would you like a nice picture in your bathroom that says I've got 50 million downloads, or would you like a check for $5 million? So what's more important to you as a business, as a developer? Is it that plaque in your toilet where when your friends come around, they're like, oh wow, you made a game? Or is it the 5 million in the bank where you can grow your team and do nice things? So this is why we went into idle, because what you can see for the top games, you've literally got double the average session time versus hyper-casual. So in theory, you have got double the opportunity to monetize your audience on a most simplistic level. So that is actually why we started building idle games, because we wanted to dig into this in a bit more detail. Now, in terms of where this is all going, I think for me, again, you can put different labels on it, but what we're seeing is this whole concept of hyper-casual now maturing and going different ways. So if we look at ultra-casual, for me, so if I take Pancake Art, which is one of our games, it's all about a visually pleasing game. It's aimed at even a more non-gamer audience than hyper-casual. And yes, you sacrifice a little bit in terms of game art, but you're able to target even more users, and the CPI should be significantly lower. However, the trade-off is LTV. Now, when we look at hybrid casual, and I'm sure you're very familiar with the example I have up there, but this is really interesting because this is the kind of developers that we're really interested in meeting, people that actually are very skilled at building RPG casual games that really understand IEP and are moving or looking at hyper-casual and taking some elements of that and bringing out this new genre of game. So the latest stats I had was about 38 million downloads and $50 million at IEP, of which likely $15 to $25 million in ad revenue. So for me, this is where I think if you want to make your bets in terms of LTV and really developing like the meta of a game and doing something really fresh and new, that's very much where we're looking. For me, ultra casual is interesting, but you know, a lot of the games that we're seeing, I mean, who would have thought that like a top game, and fair play to the team at Lion, like, you know, painting your nails would ever be like a game topping the charts. So hyper-casual is challenging this concept of what a game even is. Forget the monetization thing, the content in a game, like painting your nails, icing a cake, making a pancake. Like, I think as an industry, we struggle with that as a concept, that is a game, which is perhaps where a lot of the aggression comes from in terms of you know, not liking hyper-casual. But for me, drawing was kind of a trend last year. We're seeing a lot of these kind of feel-good, soap-cutting games coming through at the moment in terms of our submissions that are jumping on this trend. But what I'm really interested in is a couple of things. One, I had a conversation this morning. If you're still making 2D games and wondering why you're not hearing back from publishers, that's because you need to make 3D games. 2D games are not working anymore. And the guys at ZeptoLab, I don't know if anyone's downloaded it. I spent some time playing it because there's an awesome studio who, when I asked him what the big trend is for 2020, he said merge is going to be the new idle. Hey, buddy. It wasn't him, sorry. And I think that's really interesting, actually, because then, now I think about it, you've got hyper-casual, you've got super-casual, we've got hybrid casual, we've got idle, and potentially we've now got this re-emergence of merge coming back round. And so jumping around a bit, we've kind of also seen this with arcade. It's like almost like arcade are coming back. So if you stand back and get a bit unemotional about it and just look at it, all we're seeing is just like a recycling of game genres that basically people have forgotten about, and now we're exposing a global audience to arcade, and they're like, hey, this is cool. So all of a sudden, arcade games hit the charts, the developer games that we get sent are all arcade-based, and I think you're going to start seeing the same with merge. Why? Because idle as a category has got insanely popular because of the kind of LTV kind of retention play there. But you've also seen increased competition. Like there's so many amazing idle games in the charts now. So those developers, those publishers are going to need to look for the next big thing, just like we are in hyper-casual. So for me, that's where merge is going to come in. UA and monetization. What can I share with you? Okay, so again, everyone's got their sort of target CPI. Well, you know, some things when I was chatting to our UA team, I just don't want to misquote him, but compared to a few years ago where there's 3 of us, we actually have a very large UA team. So when I was chatting to Gonzalo, basically what he was saying is in terms of tier 3 countries are a really good place to start testing on Android. Like huge numbers at scale, really low CPI. So if you want to start seeing some numbers on your game, there's no reason why you should just be starting testing on US iOS. I know a lot of the big publishers say, look, you need to have a few hundred users on there, but you can certainly look there. As well as Facebook, Snap is a really interesting platform for testing. Again, huge audience, and sometimes the way we look at that is like, don't get me wrong, we love Facebook, but it's nice to actually look at a second data source to back up what you're seeing on Facebook, and they've got some great features around automatic CPIs. For us, we've invested really heavily, and we were the first publisher globally with MoPub to introduce impression-level data live. So at a simplistic level, what this means, and this is the thing that gets missed the whole time in hyper-casual, is we don't treat hyper-casual as this massive cohort, right? All of our games and part of the design and the whole ad experience is specific to you. So therefore, for that to be a reality, we need and have built the technology to enable to, from a UA perspective, set a unique bid price and value for individual A on network A versus network B, but also a level down, we know what we want to bid within network A on publisher 1 and 2 for the first individual versus on network B on publisher 1 and 2 there. So then from a monetization perspective, there's no point giving those 2 people the same experience, because one of them actually we can see is leaning towards IEP, so we're going to see more IEP-based games in their game experience, versus perhaps the first player is one of these ultra-casual players that has got no concept what IEP is, so actually we're going to see more sort of banners and interstitials that are a more easier way into them to ad-based games. So behind the scenes within hyper-casual, there is so much tech and science and data going into what we're doing behind the scenes to drive success. It's not just simply about having low CPI, great retention. This whole unique gameplay experience is really important. New monetization providers, we're always testing, and that's a great thing about hyper-casual. We have lots of games. We can test lots of different things in our games. So whether it's Snap Audience Network, TikTok, try them all. Just conscious of time. So my main point here is 2 things. One, this doesn't just happen. There is a lot of art and science going behind what we're doing in terms of when we release games, trying to time the release of games, because ultimately we are at times competing with ourselves, right? If you've got a huge game in the charts that's cannibalizing other hyper-casual inventory, you need to think really carefully about your timing, or when you see a game starting to lapse in terms of LTV, that's when it's a good time to start pushing a different game. But you can only do that if you have technology. Copycats, I'll skip over this one, but it's this kind of like black box in hyper-casual. I'm waiting for the drama to come out on Netflix about it. But again, no issue with copying game mechanics, right? That's the way hyper-casual works. It's about volume, right? Build a prototype, test it. If you can't change it within a couple of weeks, can it, move on to the next one. But you know, there is this kind of big battle emerging between people literally copying games, which, you know, again, you can split the fence, but for us, it's all about iterating on game mechanics versus copying games. Publisher tools and contracts, this is really moving on now. So it's great to hear publishers pushing back. So my favorite quote I had last week was a publisher saying, a developer saying, look, if you want me exclusively, buy me. Right? And I completely agree with it. This whole concept of exclusivity, it's your business, it's your team, you have salaries to pay. So you need a contract that is on a level playing field. If the publisher wants something, you should get something back, right? So it's great to start seeing contracts that almost look a bit like a VC investment in your business. You want access to tools, okay? If someone's testing your game and it didn't work, well, why didn't it work? You have the right to get feedback because it's your business. You spent a lot of time on that. So work with publishers that have got tools and also human beings. Like Slack's great, but human beings are better than Slack, right? Actual feedback on your game. Going to have to be really quick on creatives, but once the game is live, creative, test everything, right? The game, change the game, but like build creatives. We've got Melissa, ex-Ubisoft. She has worked incredible wonders. So changing your creative in this specific example, it decreased the CPI versus example 1 by almost $1. Skyroller, before, after. Keep testing everything within the game. See if you can make it better, increase conversions. It's going to go really quick. Build for each network. This is like, oh, that's gone back. It's not working. But this is for TikTok. We build specific ad formats for TikTok. They're really cheesy, really cringy. But this example delivered a 4x in terms of conversions and drive the CPI down. So you don't just build creative anymore for stick it on AppLovin, Facebook. Build specifically for the platform. Top trends, all about live video. Well, it was anyway. This is going to change, but it was all about putting live video in your ads. Like try and get someone's attention to your game. Right before it was just a hand play, a hyper-casual game. Now it's this fusion of live video with what your game is all about. Cultural moments, obvious one. This is from Split Balls. Like, look about what creatively you can do around big life moments. Valentine's Day coming up. Again, hyper-casual, not gamers, mass market. How can you dial into what they care about? We're hiring. We've got 13 open roles. I want to hire lots of people. So if you want to work for one of the fastest growing companies in hyper-casual, come see me afterwards. And sorry for rushing. Thank you very much.
I so appreciate the rushing. It's interesting. I was with Manu, who does write for Deconstructor of Fun, and his conclusions were remarkably similar to yours. You'd be surprised, possibly surprised.
So we can be friends. That's the thing.
Yes, definitely, absolutely. I mean, he was more focused on the hybrid casual, but it was interesting how there are a lot of similarities. So maybe it's not dead. Maybe it actually is evolving. Like you're saying, I'm going to give you a chance for one quick question. If anyone wants to grab that question. Here's your chance. Anyone? Go for it.
Just want to acknowledge, John, I've watched every single video on YouTube that you have, and I think you're the guy to talk to and uncover the elephant in the room when we're talking about hyper-casual. I love Deconstructor of Fun, but I think you're one of the most defending hyper-casual guy in the industry because you speak truth and you go uncover things the way they are and work in hyper-casual. I have one suggestion. A lot of people don't know what D1 retention, D7 retention, and why you're picking 30, 40, 50%. People just don't understand it, right? I spent the last year figuring out why 40%, why 50%. So it's better for you to explain to developers, because there's a lot of talented developers out there who just don't know the stuff, but they're talented. They do really good games. And I think you're the closest one to bring the kind of experience, what it is like to work with a publisher, because you tell it up front, not hiding, behind contracts and things like that.
Well, it's great advice, and yeah, in terms of some of the smaller sessions we're going to start doing this year in specific cities, invite people to really go like a level down, because in these rooms you never know the audience, but I really appreciate your feedback, and let's have a quick chat.
And on that note, thanks very much.
Cool, thank you.